so done with this world. Oh, fly the dash 8. Oh, huh, are you flying the crash 8? Oh god, I'm flying the crash 8 again. Oh, you better not crash it, guys. Listen to me. Flying the dash 8 is easy peasy. I would say lemon squeezy, but even that's kind of tricky. Flying the dash 8 is really simple. You just gotta make sure that you have the right mentor, the right mentality, the right pilot, the right co-pilot I should say, or the right captain even. So, sorry, as I was saying, I mean, hey guys, a very good afternoon, or wherever you live, or at whatever time you're watching this. I'm sorry, I'm not good with time zones, as you might know, but a lot of people have been wanting me to make a little Dash 8 tutorial, but, quick disclaimer, this is not going to be a tutorial on how you click every single button out here. I'm just going to show you how I fly it from A to B. I've been flying this plane for years. It was one of my first ever flight sim add-ons. So I'm going to teach you how I fly it, how I think you should fly it, if you don't want to waste your time doing boring checklists nobody cares about. So, if you want to just know how to fly this plane with every single step, following every single checklist, this might not be the tutorial for you. But if you just want to know how to fly it from A to B, using pretty much the steps I take as well, just follow along. It's easy peasy. I'm not going to go too far into detail, so this should be a quick tutorial. I'm going to be doing a full flight. We're going to fly here from Samos to Athens, a flight I've never done before, at least not in the last 24 hours. It's going to be a nice flight. We're going to be departing, of course, out of an airport with SIDS, just not the most equipment. Going to be landing at Athens. Going to show how to do an ILS. If you want to do a visual approach, even better, you do you. ILSs are boring, but even establishing onto the ILS can be a bit tricky, so hey, I'm going to teach you that as well. So, if you're ready to fly with us, hop in, take a seat, sit next to me. You can take the captain's seat for a day, just for an experience, and then we're going to get going. Oh, quick detail by the way, I am of course flying a P3, I'm flying the majestic Dash 8 Q400, which of course, the same plane has a FlyJSim Q400 in X-plane, but some differences might come along the way. I myself have no clue what the differences are between the FlyJSim Q400 and the majestic Q400, but you might find them along the way. Just message me, comment, or whatever you want to, and I'll try and find a solution to one of the differences or whatever problem you might get. Right guys, so as we're starting up, I want to have a quick look with you. I want to look through the majestic Dash 8 Q400 control panel. This is the panel you can use for your fuel and payload, your shared cockpit settings, your aircraft preferences, control settings, everything you need. It's a really simple program. What you just have to do, if you just follow along, you go to the Windows taskbar, you look up a program, you type majestic or MJC Mike Juliet Charlie, there it is, a majestic control panel. You run that as admin, boom, there's the bad boy. So for the settings, imported settings will be flight config. In here you will see your simple, I guess, aircraft settings. Look at mass and fuel. Do you want to use kilograms or pounds, hectopascals or inches? Quick tip: if you ever switch between flying between the US and Europe a lot, which to me you should do, make sure you run this program every time before you start up the sim, so you can change your units in the plane as well to either pounds or inches or whatever you need. Second of all, I'm going to be starting up with the cockpit state canal. That's a nice one. Never heard that one before. Cold and dark. This is right there. Easy peasy. Like I said, you can start this plane up for 5 minutes, or if not, less even. So that should be good to go. Pause at 100%. Like I don't even know why somebody would need that. Like how long of a flight we should be doing in a Dash 8 that you need to pause at 100%, but whatever. For you noobs out there, that's there as well. And then second of all, you can use a HUD as well. I know it might sound cursed that there's Dash 8s with a HUD, but they used to exist. Well, they still do. If only it was a bit more of a popular plane. Second of all, system. We don't care. Flight controls, that's quite important. If you're using a yoke or whatever, make sure to select ailerons and mouse. This makes you able to taxi the plane with your yoke. I know that sounds proper cursed, but that's the only way to do it. You can also use mouse only, but then you have to like drag the tiller with your mouse, and that's like proper annoying. Then we have engine controls. You just keep that default. We're gonna keep it simple. And then this is important, the weight imbalance. This will of course be your place to go if you ever need want to adjust your fuel or your payload, of course. Quick tip: you can use this when the sim is running. Like if I were to press calculate right now and then press send data to sim would pause, but if I then unpause, we have the fuel and payload on board. So we're going to take a quick look at sim brief. Going to take a look at what zero fuel weight it wants me to have, or zero fuel mass as we have here. We're going to take a look at the fuel and the ship fuel, and then we should be good to go. Right, so welcome to the wonderful world of sim brief, of outdated nav data and whatever else you would need. So for this flight, we don't care about this, we don't care about that, we don't care about that, any of this. Okay, well, maybe for flying over some of your calls that might be kind of important, but what we want to look at is our block fuel, our zero fuel weight, and down here our chip fuel. So when we go to the Majestic Dash 8 control panel, you can select your rates, whatever you need, what kind of passengers you want, or how many passengers I want, I should say. And then you just want to match the zero fuel mass over here with whatever sim brief gave you. As you can see, I didn't do that right now, but do we even care? It's about flying the plane, that's all. However, block fuel and chip fuel is important. You want to go to your takeoff fuel. That's your block fuel. To be honest with you, I have no clue why they call that your takeoff fuel, but whatever, use that. So we're going to put in 2837, which is a lot, but whatever. 2837 there. And then for the trip fuel, we want to get 944 in there. So 944 there. We can calculate that. It will do its magic. Then we can send it to sim. And like I said, when we unpause the sim, it's all in there. So now we have that. The next important, well, quote-unquote important thing will be, of course, a route, but we'll look at that later. So let's just hop into the plane, try to set it up, just follow along with me. Like I said, if you kind of want to speed run this, it's doable in 5 minutes. Okay, so when you start up, first thing I start up with is I check the overhead, see if it's all simple. Another thing you can do, it doesn't really matter, but you can turn off Gen 1 and Gen 2 on the DC and AC over there, but again, not that important. So what you do first is up here, you do 1, 2, 3, 4, get all the batteries on, plane will start coming alive, it will start screaming at you. Just confirm that your ground power is connected, and if it is, you can also get external power on the EC and on the AC as well. And we can turn on the recirculation fan. It will make a proper noise, it will sound like you're in a tornado, but whatever, just deal with it. And then you also want to make sure that the packs are on auto. I pretty much go with like an arch like that, start with the left and no going down like that. You can get the fastest seatbelt sign, the no smoking sign, and you can arm the emergency exit lights as well. Temperature and stuff, we don't care about that, just put it to 12. 12 o'clock position, and then you're fine. Next up, if we finish that circle, we have the lights, so we can get the position light on, which is pretty much a navigation light in any other plane. That if it's dark, or if you're flying below 10,000 feet because other people get mad at you, you can turn on the logo light. And I'm going to do that right now just to piss you off. So, cockpit lighting wise, we have the overhead lights. Just turn everything on. Just do it, please. Just turn everything on. It will look good. Then we have the dome light as well if you're flying at night, but also a storm light, which will just be there, and it makes it look extra cozy. Then, once you've done that, we can actually go down here. We can turn on our little computers over there. We can turn you on. We can turn you on, and then we can start up the radio panel as well. Put them both on. We'll do a test in the meantime, and then our beautiful Majestic Dash 8 announcements will start, which of course you Q4XP boys don't have. So I mean, go and cry or do whatever you want. So right now we're just waiting for this, which will be finished. It will take some time. I don't know. I mean, like 30 seconds maybe. And then once it's done, you can press accept. On that side, you can press accept. On that side, you can go down here, and when the radio panel's all good as well. This is all personal preference, but I prefer to control the radio via the FMS. So I put the radio panel to FMS so that I can control it with that as well. So there you go, that's all done, and then you're good to go. Another thing, as you can see, at least in the Majestic Q400, the displays are really dark, so when you want to start it up and get a bit more brightness in, just turn it all the way up over there, turn the MFD all the way up over there, turn the right PFD up down there, and then the right MFD as well. And then, quick question, how do we get the brightness up? Sorry, I'm just going to show you here. I know that's like a trick question, like only 80% of the people that fly the Dash 8 know where that button is, but there you go, it's down here. You can get the ED up as well. And then for the FMSs itself, you go back to the on-off button. As you can see, it says on-off dim. You press on-off dim and you just spam that for a couple of times. Then you have the brightness up. Do the same with the other side. And there you go. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. So then, once you've done that, we can start making the flight plan. So what we're going to start up with is we're going to go to nav. So we are flying from Lima Golf Sierra Mike. Enter that in there, which is a cool airport. We're flying to Athens, Lima Golf Alpha IZ Victor. Enter that in there, which is Athens. It's cool and all, so we can accept that on that side as well. It'll put the flight plan in there, or at least your departure and arrival airport. So then for the actual route, we go to the flight plan page. We start up by putting our departure airport in, Lima Golf Sierra Mike. Then our first waypoint, which would be Larky. So Lima Alpha Romeo Kilo India. Put it in there, it will show Larky. Just make sure that's correct, that you don't have like duplicate waypoints or something. Accept that in there. And then if you want to put an airway in, which is I think Hotel 59, you go to list, you select airway, you select number 2 because that's Hotel 59, so number 2, and we want to go to Copar, number 3, up there. There we go. Next up, we have Romeo 19 to Vodix, and that will already be the last airway. So we go list, we go over there, go Romeo 19, number 3, towards Vodix, number 8. Enter that in there. There's your route, and then you just want to finish it off with selecting Lima Golf Alpha Victor as your arrival airport, or wherever you're flying. So accept that as well. Then for the departure, you go to the menu. Just make sure in the flight plan page, you'll go to flight plan, menu, you select depart. What do we want to depart out of? I have no clue. We'll depart out of runway, oh sure, we'll depart runway 27. So number 2, select that there, and then we want to be on the Larky. What do we want? Let's say the Larky 3 Bravo, so that's number 2. Put that in there, select transition if you got one over there. You can enter that, go flight plan, and then I don't know if it's the same thing in the Q4XP, but sometimes your route gets messed up in the Majestic Q400 if you do if you put in a departure arrival. So once you've made a change like this, just go direct and go direct to where you're pretty much currently flying. I'll show you en route what it's like when you do a when you enter an arrival once you're up in the air. So then, actually, we're not done yet. We can go down to the fuel page and select everything in here. There. So our served fuel weight, our served fuel mass will be 24289 even. So 24289. And then the amount of fuel that we have on board is 2837. So we're going to go to fuel on board 2837. Again, I was going to keep it simple. So if you want to change all of this, do it. But I'm not going to do it right now because lazy pilot moment, I guess. Right. So that will be your flight plan, and now you've put that in, you're good to go, FMS wise. So now it's just a matter of setting up the plane so that you're ready to go. First of all, what I would do, select your nav source. This is really important. We're going to talk about this more often, but this will select the kind of way your plane wants to navigate, if that makes sense. So right now we want to find the FMS because we want to follow the route. So we'll select FMS 1 over there, and just for the sake of accuracy, we'll put the nav source on the right side to FMS 1 as well. You could put it to FMS 2, but you will probably only be controlling the FMS on the left side. So just put that to FMS 1, and there you're good to go. So perfect. Now we're good to go to the next part, which will be the V speeds, or whatever you want to do, but I start up with the V speeds. Now this is again another difference between the Q4XP and the Majestic Dash 8. In the Majestic Dash 8 you can use a speed chart, you can use a calculator for the performance, which I will link you as well in the description somewhere. But the way I like to do it, because I'm lazy, is I just check the speed card over here. I'll make a link for that as well. And this will give you all the speeds that you want. Then we can just put it in the plane. So, looking at this, we can have our takeoff data and quite important information here, like icing protection. If icing protection is on, you need to adjust your V speeds by 20 knots. So that, just read through it, it will make sense. We have our flap speeds, like flaps 5. Then we have these speeds, flaps 10. There you go. This will also show your landing speeds. Again, it's all quite simple. So what we're going to look at is we're going to go to SimBrief. Our takeoff weight is 27.8. So we're going to look at the 28,000 kilograms bar. We're departing from, well, almost sea level at SAML. So we're going to look at the 0. And then we're looking at a flaps 5 departure. So then we have a V speed of, or at least a rotate speed, and a V2 speed of 130 and 132. Next up, we have our flap protection speeds and climb speeds. Again, looking at the 28,000 kilograms and a flaps 5 departure over here. We're looking at a flap protection speed of 142 and a climb speed of 154. Again, it's not that strict. If you want to climb with 180 knots, you do that as well. Whatever you like. Like, this will be your initial climb speed, so 154. So again, we're going to look down here. We're going to look at our V speeds. VR is 130, V2 is 132. So we're going to hop down here, down there, I should say. We're going to press the speed bug button here, the select button. We're going to scroll up to 130. Over there, we're going to press the button again. The rotate speed will be 130 as well. I'm just going to keep the V1 and the V rotate speed the same. The V2 speed will be 132. And then for the climb speeds, looking back at the chart, we have 142 and 154. So select that again. 142 in there. And then if I can just speed run up, we have 154. Next up, our QNH at SAMLs right now is 1010. So we'll go in here, select 1010, and then we're good to go. If you want to be mega realistic, if you want to have a realistic climb out, if you want to have a proper thrust or power, I should say in this case, reduction altitude, quick tip, you can go to the MDA, select whatever altitude you want. Let's say you want to get climb power at 500 feet, you select that in there, and then you have that bar there, so whenever you would cross that, you can select climb power and then you're good to go. I, however, myself, just do it once we're passing about 1500 feet. We'll go climb power, flaps up and everything, but that'll come later. So now you have your V speeds. You can quickly go to the MCP over there, select whatever altitude you want to climb to. I'm just going to climb at a cruise altitude. I'm flying offline, so I can just go straight up to our cruise level. And SimBrief wanted me to cruise at what altitude? 230, so we'll go for that. So we're going to put in 230 over there. Then another thing you can do is quickly press the, I'll just call it toggle button on the throttle. So on the side there, it will give you wing level and go around. So you go around pitch of about 10 degrees. But you can follow whenever you take off. So there you go. Now we've put in our flight plan. We have our V speeds. Our MCP is somewhat set up. We can just quickly set some outbound heading over there. And then we're good to go. I always, whenever I actually set up the plane, prefer to have the MFD on the door page. What I go and do is down here, you can select the source, we'll select system, and then we'll select door. However, that will change it on both sides. If you then want to change the right to the info page as well, you just go quickly back to nav and system, and we'll go back to that default panel right there, the electrical system. So that's all done. Quickly, you can do this in cruise as well, but I do that on the ground. You can select your landing flap there. Since we're landing at Athens, long runway, all simple approach, I'll quickly select flaps 15 for landing, because that's all we need. We don't have to make a proper stalled landing into Athens. So then for the startup itself, you don't need an APU, but let's say you need an APU for the pushback. We don't, like I said, don't need an APU because we have the ground power to start up with. In the Dash 8 you don't need the APU to start up, but of course if you want to push back, you don't want to use your ground power to drag you all the way along. So if you want to start up the APU, you can do that as well. Just press power, start, and then you want to use the gen and the bleed air as well, just for air conditioning's sake. So that will then do its thing. Just make sure at the start you saw that weird line dash across. Just make sure it does that, and then it should be starting up the right way. Again, I'm not going to use it, so I'm just going to turn it all off again because we're on the GPU anyway. But whenever you want to use your APU, just do power, start, gen, and bleed, and there you're done. So now that we're ready to go, we can quickly get through the lights. We want to get the anti-collision light. The beacon light is pretty much the anti-collision light, but red. So select red in there. And then we are good to start up. So the way you do that is quite simple. Really simple, actually. You just select the engine you want to start. Engine number 2. You press start. As you can hear, the packs, or whatever we call them, will die. And then as you can hear, the RPM will increase. So we can select fuel and start on feather. If you then look back there, it should start to do its thing, which it is doing. Quick bit of information. If you ever think, hey, my engine's not running even, what should I do? Remember, we only put the engines to start on feather, so they're pretty much not doing anything right now, so that's why they're pretty quiet. But as you can see down here, we have a good start on the engine number 2. So next up, we'll go to engine number 1, select 1, start, and let that do its thing. RPM is coming alive. We'll already get the fuel in, and then we're good to go. I am so proud of you. You have just started up the engines of a -A Q400. You do you. Pat on the back. Let's go. Right. So once you've done that, again, depends on what airline you're flying, but in the Q400 of Majestic -8, that doesn't exist, but in the Majestic -8, when you select anything higher than start on feather, your GPU will disappear automatically. But if it doesn't do that, get rid of it. I'll just show you how we do that in the Majestic -8. You go data, services, and you go GPU request, and then you cancel that. So when that disappears, we can go back to the power levers, just put that to 850, and the engines will start coming alive, as you can hear by the air conditioning as well. So next up, we can get generator 1 on the DC, get generator 1 on the AC. We can get rid of the external power in the DC, and same for the AC. Then after that, we can get rid of the main bus, and then just check that everything else is on, which it is. Next up, what I always do is get the P3D static on standby, when to the windshield heat, just put that to normal. And again, this is airline dependent, but most airlines that I've seen put the engine intakes and the eyes on as well. So just put that on, and they're good to go. Oh, and select these to open, otherwise, simply said, you just won't see anything. So then, when you want to taxi out, just go down here, select nose to steering, put that on, and when you wiggle around with your yoke, you'll see, oh hey, I can taxi, so then you're good to go. So then, I'm going to quickly put the displays back to nav, so on that side, I'll select nav, and on that side as well, I will select nav, and then we're good to go. So let's release the brakes, trying to spin around, and then we're good to go. Another quick tip in the -8, I barely even use the brakes, just put the throttle back to disc, and as you can see, your plane will already even start taxiing backwards, which would be quite cool as well, if you want to assert dominance. So during the taxi out, we could put the yaw damper on, of course the lights too, so up there, go lights. Oh, and as you can see, I forgot about something. We're approaching the runway. I'm just going to put the plane to a standstill real quick, and I'm going to talk you through the fact that I haven't selected the flaps yet. This is, like I kept on saying, a thing about the -8. A lot of airlines do a lot of things differently, but some airlines that I've seen want to wait with putting on the PTUs first until they reach the runway. So let's do that as well. Let's do a quick control check first of the standby PTU. We're going to quickly get rid of the control lock so that we can move around with the yoke. We're going to get rid of the cover, quickly put it on, watch the flight controls, move them around, see if they're actually free, and if they move over there, as you can kind of see, I know it's a bit far away, but there you go. And once you've done that, you can put it back off, get the cover back on, select the standby PTUs, select the flaps. We're departing with flaps 5, like we said earlier. We can go down here, get the tank 1 pumps on, and tank 2 pump on, and arm auto feather. Now we are pretty much ready for takeoff, so we'll get rid of the parking brake, start taxiing, and enter the runway. Once you do enter the runway, select the spoilers to flight. You can do that as well once you're doing the backtrack, but I like to do it when I enter the runway. This will get your spoilers ready for, like they say, the flight itself. Now, if some of you are daring enough to fly out of Samos as well right now with me, just go ahead and disable terrain, because otherwise the plane might scream at you that it's all done in front of you. There's terrain inhibit, select that, and now the plane won't scream at you. Of course, it will show you the warning, but that's just to remind you of the fact that, hey, you turned it off. Since we're on the runway and we're departing soon, we can get the TCAS or the transponder. We can put that to TRA. The way we do that is we look down here at the bottom line select key of the radio panel, hold that, and it will put everything to the right setting. So then when we finish up our little pirouette over there, as I properly mess up the lineup, we'll quickly get the plane to a standstill here, just to show you some stuff. So I'm going to quickly set the brakes, get the parking brake on. For our takeoff, we want to get rid of our control lock, because otherwise, well, simply said, we can't fly. We're going to go down there, we're going to put the power all the way up to max, because otherwise we won't be able to make it out of here. And we're going to get our landing lights left and right on as well, and then just check that you have the bleed over there set to minimum, because we don't even need oxygen. Talking about the bleeds before, I didn't show you yet, but you can do this as well now since the engines are running. So could have done that earlier as well. On the air conditioning, just get the bleed 1 and 2 on as well. Again, if you need more power, put that off, but I just decided since we're Dash 8, since the runway is long enough, we can put them on right now early as well. So then you're pretty much ready for takeoff. You can do a quick scan, make sure everything is the same, and then you should be good to go. So we're going to release the brake, like so. Once I announce the power, you will notice that up there in the spoilers, the warning will disappear. This means that your spoilers are tucked in again, so you won't have extra drag, which nobody cares about. So we're gonna release the brakes, announce the power a bit, get them above flight idle. You'll see the spoilers disappear, and then you can select your full power. Plane will get loud, just don't get scared. It's all good. As you can see, we've passed 80 knots already. Quick dip, you can use rudder trim, or you can use just some right aileron on the takeoff, because the torque will make you fly to the side. Here, there's V1, rotate, we'll pull back, and if I don't do anything, you'll see the plane turns away, so just turn right, and then you're good to go. Pitch for that 10 degrees that we selected earlier, you can get the gear up, and then if you want to make it good idea, you might want to turn away from the mountains. Like I said earlier, of course, I like to put in my climb power and everything at about 1500 feet. For now, I'm just going to disregard about that. I'm just going to quickly turn away from the terrain first, get stable, and then we'll get our plane ready for the climb out. So, we'll follow the sit right now. I'm going to do a quick heading select. So we'll go up there, select heading, and then roll out. You can keep your max power in, but what you want to do right now is you're going to go down there. Again, this is airline dependent. We're going to go, since we're above the speed anyway, the flap retraction speed of 142, we'll go flaps up, wait for that, go props 900, we'll get rid of the auto feather, get rid of the standby PTUs, and get the bleeds back up to normal. And then we can also speed up. We're going to go IS mode and select 180 for the climb out initially. You can again climb with 154 knots or 210 knots. Just make sure that you don't select a too high of a speed, because otherwise your plane simply said will just not climb. We'll also select nav to follow our LNAV and alt cell, so that we actually level off at our cruise altitude. And then if you want to be lazy like me, turn on the autopilot, let the plane do its thing, and then you're good to go. I was going to press our pass even our transition altitude soon, so we're going to select standard in there. That will select 1013. let's say you want to be even more lazy, like I am, and you see, hey, your SID has a weird turn like that, or your route has a weird turn like that. Let's say we want to go direct to Akina. The way you do direct in this beautiful FMS, you go to the direct to page, you select the waypoint you want to fly to. That was the Akina, or whatever it's called, waypoint. So we're going to go next page. Akina is number 10. You select number 10, press enter, and the plane will turn direct to that waypoint. Since that we're climbing away nicely, we can also increase the speed. I like to always climb with about 210 knots, which for most planes is really slow, but for the Dash 8 is quite a good climb speed, because that will still give you quite some nice climb performance, as in V speed, vertical speed, sorry. Another quick bit of information, if you're flying the Dash 8, something that you'll find that is really important in this plane is your rudder trim. Like I said already during the takeoff, a good practice you want to maybe start doing is when you do a takeoff in the Dash 8, put a couple of clicks of right rudder trim in. Again, I don't do that myself because I got used to like putting in a proper right aileron right after takeoff, but if you want to have a bit of a smoother takeoff, maybe select a couple of clicks to the right on the rudder trim and then you're good. Again, on cruise as well, you'll see that we'll cruise with a bit of a tilt. It's not too bad right now, but if you're properly turning, use your rudder trim to get your plane back on center. And it should be good. As you can see, that will level out the plane a bit more nicely. And you just want to do that along the way. If you start flying proper sideways, just select a couple of clicks on the trim, and that will level out the plane nicely as well. I know we were going to keep it simple, but I forgot about something simple. Landing lights. I don't know if you want to do a tutorial on how to turn off lights, but once you pass 10,000 feet, you can turn off your landing lights, unless you want to be really cool and you want to keep that on just to piss people off. Just keep them on, but there you go. Now we're all good for the climb out. Plane should be doing its thing. No weird indications. Again, we can get rid of the terrain inhibit. That will turn it back on, and then we can get the weather radar back on as well. Could have done that before too, but I believe, I could be wrong, that might have been fixed, but I believe the other Dash 8 in the sim didn't have working weather radar yet. But now you're good to go. Just gonna do a little test first, and then after that, they will all clear out, and then you're good to go. Now that we're climbing out nicely, we finally have some time to sit back, do nothing, get our rifle sorted, and then we're good to go. So if we go to sim brief, you can see that our final waypoint will be the Vadex waypoint, with the Vadex 3 Charlie arrival. I think I'm going to be landing runway 03 right. Let's take a look at active sky real quick. We are indeed landing runway 03 right, so let's get the arrival sorted. The way you do that is the same for the departure. You go to the flight plan page, you then go to menu, you select arrive, and then you select what runway you want to land on. So we're going to land runway 03 right. So as you can see, that's number 2. So we select number 2, we select the star, we go to the next page until we see our star. There's the Vadex 3 Charlie arrival. So number 28, put that in there. We don't need a transition, but we are doing the ILS Zulu, runway 03 right. So that will be number 4. Enter. Do we want another transition? No, we don't. We'll just factor ourselves towards the ILS. So go flight plan, and that might mess up your flight plan. Yeah, it did. So like I said earlier, the way you fix that is you go to the direct to, you go direct to the waypoint you're currently flying towards. That's number 10. You enter that in there, and there you go. Now if you want to crossfill that to the other side, again, it still has the old flight plan in the current FMS on the right side, because they're not linked. So if you want to get it all across as well, you could quickly go direct to number 10 and then get your arrival sorted in there as well, and it will all crossfill it nicely. Another thing we can do is, since we're almost, well, pretty much stable in the climb out, we're almost at cruise level, we can also get rid of the pumps, tank 1 and tank 2. And there you go. Now the only thing left to do is reach your destination. Again, since we talked about earlier, we were talking about the rudder trim. As you can see right now, we have a slight tilt to the right. You can just play around with the rudder trim until you're again a bit more stable. Here, one click fixed it. Again, if you do it way too far to the left, you'll notice that your plane starts to tilt even more. Just adjust it in a way that it's most logical for your plane to stabilize, and then you're all good. Just a reminder, by the way, earlier on during the climb out, we were talking about pressing Alt-Cell, this button in here. If you do not select Alt-Cell, this will be important during the descent. In the climb it's not too much of an issue, but if you don't select Alt-Cell, your plane will just climb straight through or descend straight through your selected altitude. So just make sure you press Alt-Cell to actually be sure about the fact that your plane levels off at the right altitude. So now that we're at our cruise altitude, flight level 230 in our case, we can go back to the power levers, get them back to props 850. This will first of all reduce the noise, reduce the power, and again we are still at full power, or at least the throttle is full since our takeoff. So as you can see, you don't really need to touch the throttle a lot unless you descend or if you fly rather low, because at an altitude like this with the condition levers back at 850, you'll see that even at full, we'll just call it full thrust, the speed isn't increasing by that much. So it's all stable. As you can see, I am accelerating right now. So once we get to like 240 knots, I will just reduce the power just a bit to make sure that we're not flying way too fast. And again, you can see the plane's tilting a bit more. So again, we can adjust the rudder trim to actually stabilize the plane. And that'll do. But I just did that since we're making a turn, and the chances are that once we exit this turn, we're going to have to adjust it yet again. But then it's all fine. We could also select the VNAV right away. So the way you set up VNAV in this plane, it's really simple. The VNAV in this plane works kind of like how it would work in the most simplest way. It will look at your ground speed, it will look at a certain waypoint or a certain altitude you want to be at a certain waypoint, and it will just judge your vertical speed off of that. So, sorry, your top of descent off of that. So if you go to VNAV, you want to go to the VNAV page, you want to go V2. Let's say we want to descend straight to the ILS waypoint, waypoint number 8. We would select number 8, but I want to do something else. Let's say we want to be at 7,000 feet at Kia. We would go to the FMS, press Alt flight level, select 7,000 feet in there. It will do at 7,000 feet. Then we're going to go to the VNAV page, V2. We want to be at Kia, so number 4. Select number 4 with a vertical speed of 1,800 feet per minute. It will then give us a top of descent in, let's say, how many miles? There we go. Should be in about 60 miles. Yes, there we go. Perfect. Another thing we can do in cruise is set up the ILS. Like I said earlier, a really important part when navigating in general on the Dash 8 will be your nav source. This will decide whether you're flying on your planned route, on your FMS, or if you're flying on, let's say, a VUR course, or in our case, an ILS. So if we go back to our charts, we can look at Athens. We want to land on the ILS Zulu runway 03, so we're going to select the ILS Zulu number 3 approach. And here we are. This will be our data that we need. So the navigational data, I'll call it, the frequencies we use will be 111.1 for the ILS. So we're going to go to the FMS, press tune, go to nav 1, we select the 1111, enter that in there, it'll fill in right there, and then the course will be 032. Now, since we're following our planned route, since we're following on our LNAV, I'll call it, we cannot adjust our course here. If I adjust it, it won't do anything. So what we have to do is we can hold the format button down here. That will change your displayed nav aid. Currently we are on the ILS, so it already shows ILS 1. If you're out of range, it won't show anything, or if you have the wrong frequency set, it won't show anything. Like if I were to change it to ILS 2, for example, it won't show anything because we don't have that selected in nav 2. But it shows the right thing, 101.1. Now we can also select the course. The course was 032. So now we can change that in here, and it won't change anything about the way our plane is flying. So here's the ILS 032 course set, 1111 for the right frequency, and then it's all good. So if we now go back to format, if we hold that again, you can see that our plane didn't adjust course in any way, shape or form. So now we have the ILS set. Just a quick bit of planning. whenever we would approach the runway or approach the ILS, we will switch to nav source. We'll just sync up the heading select, because I can show you right now, if I were to change the nav source right now, it will just go wings level, because it doesn't know where it wants to go, because we are out of range at the ILS. So what I always do is I get heading select ready, I select heading select, then I change the nav source, and then I can just do whatever I want with the heading itself. So that's what we'll do in the ILS as well. Again, we'll select the heading that we want to fly on, we will change our nav source to ILS 1, and then we can actually establish onto the right approach. But for now, I'll just put you back to FMS 1, because we want to follow the star. So guys, if you follow along with me, or if you're just paying attention, you would notice that since you are now approaching your top of descent, which we have just calculated with our little FMS right there, at a range of about 10 miles from your top of descent, this little V, your VNAV, I'll call it glide slope, your VNAV path will appear on screen. Like I said, it's kind of like a glide slope. Right now we are of course below our glide path, our glide slope, our VNAV path, so that's why it's right there. But as soon as that comes alive, we can arm our VNAV. The way we do that is we select a lower altitude, because otherwise I can show you it won't work. Here at 50230, if I press VNAV path, it won't do anything. But if I select 7,000 feet, our altitude for Kia, I can press VNAV, it will arm, and then I press Alt Cell as well, because if I don't do that, again, during descent, it will just descend straight through 7,000 feet. Once we are approaching our VNAV path, our plane will start descending by itself. It will pitch for about 1,800 feet per minute. You do want to reduce your power, because otherwise you'll fly way too fast. Another quick bit of information. I don't know about the Q4XP. I don't know if it has the same problem. But sometimes when your speed is bumping around a lot, your plane will not be able to maintain your VNAV path. So at some moments your plane will disconnect from the VNAV and it will just switch to pitch hold. It isn't too much of an issue. When that happens, just select vertical speed and try and get back onto your VNAV path, or you can just keep vertical speed active and just ascend with about 18 or 1900 feet per minute. It should work. Right now we are approaching our VNAV path, so as you can see when I zoom in, it's coming alive. We're about 2 miles out. It should start descending towards us soon, and then we will establish onto our VNAV path as well. And what we can do in the meantime while we wait, again, is adjust our rudder trim to try and get that back. So there we go, our VNAV path is approaching. Watch the speed, watch the power. I'll reduce the power a bit already to make sure we're not speeding up too much. There we go, I'm currently at about 50% power. That should be sufficient for the descent. There we go. We're currently on the VNAV path. Again, I might be able to show you if I increase the power by a bit after some time, the plane will not be able to maintain the VNAV path and it will just descend by itself. So now we are descending to the right altitude to eventually level off at 7,000 feet at Kia. You will just keep the props at 850 for either the entire approach or until you're on the ILS. But you can keep it there because we don't need the power anyway. Oh, there you can see we let go of the VNAV path because we adjusted the power a bit, so we can just keep vertical speed right there. Change it to about 1,500 feet per minute, and then just arm VNAV again. And then whenever we approach the VNAV path, the little pink line right there, it will establish onto the VNAV path by itself. Again, look at it like you're on a glide slope. If you would be below the glide slope out of nowhere, you would just select. I totally meant to do that. You can just select your vertical speed. You can just, in that case, stay level until you establish onto it again. Another thing we can do right now is check the charts again. Another thing we can do right now is we can quickly go to the charts and go back to the Athens charts. For the final approach 03 right, the minimums are at 471. For this Cat 1 approach, we go back here. We scroll. Actually, let's change the decision height in here so we can put that down to 0 because we don't need it. We'll go to MDA, put that to about 470 feet, and then we have our minimum set as well. So MDA, put that to 470, like so, and then we have our minimum set as well. And as you can see right now as well, we are approaching the VNAV path again. So once it's back here, there you go, we are established onto it again. So just as a quick checkup, when we establish the ILS, well, when we want to establish onto the ILS, we will switch to heading select, switch to nav source, we'll ascend straight down to 3,000 feet after Kia. We have the landing lights, of course, up there as well. For the arrival, you pretty much don't have to adjust anything in here apart from the bleed air. Once you establish onto an ILS, you put the condition levers back to max. That will be 1020 up there. And whenever you have your props at that setting, the plane wants you to have your air conditioning on minimum. But I'll show you that later. In our case, for our landing, we'll reduce the noise pollution on landing. That is done by this button. What that does is it will keep your props at 850. I'm able to demonstrate that to you right now. It will, if we press that, we can keep the props at 850, but we can put the condition levers over to max. Again, it will show you, it will ask you to change the bleeds, but I won't do that right now. We are currently on reduced NP landing with condition levers max. Like I said, as you can see right there, it will keep the RPM at 850. However, whenever we would set go around thrust, or power in our case, I can quickly do that right now, it'll disconnect it and it will automatically put the RPM back to 1020 or condition levers max. So if I were to now set go around power, it'll disconnect. And as you probably heard as well, we are actually at condition levers max right now. So again, that's a way for your plane to stay quiet unless you really need the power. But we would arm that once we get closer to our destination. Also, since we are approaching our destination now, we can also go back to the speed chart and look at what our VREF will be. My piece of advice would be look at the Dash 8 like it's a 737. If you fly the 737 a lot, you will know that you most often land the 737 with flaps 30 instead of flaps 40 unless you really need it. It's the same case about the Dash 8. Most airlines will land flaps 15 unless you're landing on a really short runway, because as you can see, it can reduce your VREF by almost 10 knots. So in our case, we departed with a takeoff weight of 27.8. We burn about 900 kilograms of fuel, so we're still around the 27-ton category. So we'll go back to the slide, go over to flaps 15. We'll look at the 28,000 kilogram speeds, and that will give us a VREF of 126. Then what I like to do as well is I'd like to set two markers for both the VREF and the VREF with icing conditions, because as you can see, when you're flying in icing conditions, you want to add 20 knots to your VREF. So we're going to go back down here again. I'm going to go to the speed bug. As we saw up here, we had a VREF of 126, so we'll select 126 in here. And again, not the case right now, but if we were to fly into icing conditions, we would have a VREF of 146 as well. As you know, this plane, as you hopefully know by now, this plane doesn't have a auto throttle, so you won't be able to be bang on the speed anyway. Again, the way I fly this plane is I try to be around the VREF. I've seen a lot of IRL pilots talk about the fact that when you land the Dash 8, you would most often land at about VREF plus 10, because that flies a bit better. It will make your landing a bit smoother as well, and it won't change the behavior of the plane too much as well. So we're also approaching 10,000 feet, so we'll get both the landing lights on, and then soon we'll also switch to heading select, because we are going to pass Kia. So we have now passed 10,000 feet. Wanted to do that a bit earlier, but we want to slow down to a speed below 250 knots right now as well. I know you want to be really fast, but in the Dash 8 we sadly have to try and keep around 245 or less knots, because otherwise the airplane just doesn't like it. So we'll stick to about 240 knots for the descent, and then since we're about to pass Kia, we'll also switch to heading select, and we'll maintain a heading of about 270 to enter our base leg for runway 03 right. So once we do that, the VNAV will disconnect. We'll go to pitch hold. Of course, we won't follow the LNAV anymore, so we can change our nav source now to ILS 1, because again, we're not following the LNAV anyway, so we can do it all manually. So whenever we would approach the ILS, we'll just go and arm an RLS. With that, it comes as well the fact that we are now at 7,000 feet, so we'll continue the descent slowly all the way down to 3,000 feet for the ILS, and we'll do it on vertical speed now because our VNAV got disconnected as well. So there's 220 knots, that's a good speed for this leg as well. So we're now descending to 3,000 feet with 1,000 feet a minute. Should be fine, the airport's far away anyway. Another thing you can do as well, since you started your descent, you can do it during the descent as well, is arm the pumps as well. Most airlines that I've seen that fly the Dash 8 turn on both the Tank 1 and Tank 2 pumps as soon as you start descent, or at least on approach as well. We've also now passed our transition level, so we can now go to the local QNH, which was, I believe, 1019, sorry, correction, 1012. So you can go back to barrel set, select 1012, and then we're ready to level off. We're also now on a right base, runway 03 right, about 20 miles out. So we can also reduce the descent rate a bit, because we're already at 4,500 feet. So we'll just descend with 500 feet for now. Remember that you might have to increase the power a bit to maintain your current speed. And they're all good to set up. Again, another thing, just for your own preference, you don't have to change your navigation display right now, but I just like to change it to a direct to the ILS, just to make sure that it looks a bit better. So we can now go direct to waypoint number 16, which will be an initial approach fix, runway 03 right, and it will give us a nice direct. A good thing about the Dash 8 is that whenever you would now adjust your heading, this line will just follow you, so you won't have to constantly refresh direct. If we were to turn left right now, so let's say left downwind, this direct would still follow. So even if you would be flying, even if you would turn towards the left right now, you would at any point be able to press nav without your plane doing something where it will right away turn right towards the waypoint, instead of intercepting a certain leg towards that waypoint as well. So we are approaching our ILS now, which you can see our ILS glide slope just came alive. So the ILS is already nicely picked up. We have the localizer that's alive. It's indicating that we're indeed about 13 miles out. So we'll start bringing the power back. I'll quickly adjust the heading a bit more. Let's say heading of 340, and then we can arm approach as well. The way you know your approach is armed the right way, it will show localizer right there, glide slope right there, and whichever one gets captured first will turn then green to show that either the altitude got overtaken by the glide slope, or the heading select got picked up by the localizer. We can already see the airport right there as well. As you can see, I took a bit of a shorter final approach just to show you that there's going to be moments at which you have to do quite a lot. So let's already start bringing the speed back to about 180 knots as well. Once you're at a speed which is lower than 205 knots, you can also lower your flaps. So let's do that right now. What we do first though is we select the standby hydraulic and the PTU. So once that's on, the pressure should indicate the right thing. You can now set your flaps to flaps 5. They will come down nicely. Start slowing down to 180 knots. And then we're good to establish as well. As you can see, I'm a bit higher than the glide slope, so we'll start arming a vertical speed of about, let's say, 300, 400 feet per minute, 500 feet per minute in our case, to hopefully establish onto the right altitude. And we'll bring the power back a bit more. Since we're also approaching the ILS right now, we can now talk about reduced NP. So we'll select that, we'll select reduced NP, get the condition levers over to max. As you can see, they won't change anything about our RPM until we reach go around power, and we'll select the bleeds back to minimums. Your plane will get more quiet because of the air conditioning that is a bit less powerful right now, and you're good. We'll start rounding up the heading. As you can see, the localizer just came alive. 2500. So what I like to do is I like to select my heading select over to the runway heading of 032, just in case it will go around, and then the plane will start establishing onto the ILS. As you can see, I completely messed up our speed there. We will start to maintain about 160 knots, 170 knots for now. And ready to establish. Let's put you back to prop 850 because I'm a master good pilot, so now we can do reduced NP again and keep you there. Perfect. as you can see, just disconnected because I selected a bit of a high power setting to get back up to our speed, but now we're good. So we are 7 miles out. Let's start to bring down the gear. Reduce the power a bit more to keep on our speed, and then you'll be ready for your landing. A lot of things that I'll do on the landing will be airline dependent, but as you can see, once we land the plane, once we vacate, we'll get the control lock on, we'll put the props back to 850 and get the flaps back up, and whenever the flaps are up we can get rid of the hydraulics again. So let's start bringing out the power a bit more. We'll go flaps 10 at around 160 knots. And then once we approach our speed of about 150, 140, we'll go flaps 15. There we go. So we have our gear just down 3 greens. Our flaps are set 15. And we can get the taxi light on because we have just gotten our landing clearance if you were to fly on the network. I'll start disconnecting the autopilot as well. Time to fly manual because the Dash 8 is a plane which will make you enjoy flying manual a bit more. If you want to get rid of your flight director, just press the standby button on the MCP and then you can do your own thing. Another thing about the Dash 8 is you want to try and descend and climb by using the trim and power line. Right now I'm not really, as you can see, pushing my yoke a lot. I'm just trimming it out, turning left and right, and adjusting my power to try and fly on some sort of glide slope. A lot of people also say that landing the Dash 8 is really hard. If somebody ever says that, just ban them out of your server or something, because it really isn't that hard. A quick important thing is keep your power in whenever you flare, because if you don't, you will hear that. Just keep your power in, even during the flare, because the CG will make you land the right way anyway. And as you can see, my pappies are properly messed up. We're on the glide slope, but our pappies are showing that we are way too high. And as you can already hear, I'm just adjusting our pitch, sorry, our glide slope, but just adjusting the power every now and again. So we are passing our minimums, we are landing
100.
And then, like I said, you don't want to idle your power, just keep your power in by a bit during the flare, and the plane will touch down by
50,
itself.
40, 30.
So I'm not adjusting the
20,
power, I'm just flaring.
10.
Bring back the power a bit, and your plane will touch down. So we'll go idle right now. As you can see, the props went back to the condition levers back by themselves. We can start braking, we don't really need the reverse. And then the plane will slow down nicely. So, we've now landed. Let's, like we said earlier, get the control lock on. Let's vacate off the runway. We'll get rid of the spoilers. Retract the flaps. Go props 850. And then if you want to be really economical even, you can shut down engine number 1. I like to do that nice and early, because I'm mega economical, as most of you already know. And then we're good. The flaps are retracted. We can get rid of the standby hydraulics again, the PTU. Turn off our landing lights, of course. Get the indication back to red. And then when you shut down the engines in the Dash 8, you want to wait for about 30 seconds until you go from start and feather back to fuel off. So we'll do that right now. We can switch to nav source, we don't need it anymore. We'll switch back to FMS1 right there too. These can come back to normal as well. And then we'll start up our APU. So let's go power, start, and gen and bleed. There's the line. There we go, perfect. Reach about 30 seconds. Let's go fuel off. We'll shut down engine number 1. And then you've properly landed your Dash 8. Hopefully you still have all 3 landing gears, because you know, it's a sensitive topic in the Dash. There you go, you shut down the engine, plane will start beeping at you. A lot. But it's all fine. Just pay attention to the fact that it's only your engine that you shut down, not any other one. We shut down engine number 1, the left engine, so everything on the left is now beeping at us. we go, we're approaching our stand. Let's get rid of the taxi light. Start lining up with the stand as well. I didn't select GSX or anything like that. We'll just park it up nicely. And then shut down our plane. Again, we don't need to brake. Just go idle and your plane will slow down by itself. Maybe if you don't want to kill the ground crew, you can also get rid of the weather radar. Just go down there and put the weather radar back to off. So there we go, we made it. Let's set the parking brake. And now that we're here, we can shut down engine number 2 as well. With that back to start and feather. And now that's at start and feather. We'll wait 30 seconds. We don't need the engine intake anti-ice anymore. We can shut down generator number 1, generator number 2, get the main bus tie on. Could do that once you land as well, if you want to be even more professional, but we'll do it right now. Then we'll get rid of generator 1, generator number 2 on the DC, same for the AC. And then the bleed 1, bleed 2 can come off as well. And that will activate the APU bleed, as you might have seen. The bleed there on the APU just turned on. There we go. So let's pretend that was 30 seconds. We'll properly shut down engine number 2 now as well. That will stop, and as soon as the rotation has stopped, you can turn off the beacon light and start your deboarding. So, plane starts beeping at us, which means we'll get rid of the exterior lights. Of the anti-collision light. Start our deboarding at GSX, and then we're all ready to shut down. So let's say we want Olympic extra handling. We'll select that, get rid of the fasten seatbelt sign. Then open up our doors and then we're ready to go. So, we'll put you back to the system page, select doors, and put you back to the system page. And select the electrical power. So now we can do an easy Shift E, Shift E2, Shift E3. There we go. All our doors are opened. And we have now properly made it down. As you can see, IGT is decreasing, RPM and the torque roll back to 0. Engines are shut down. You're good to go. Let's get more economical. Go data. Services, connect the GPU, wait for that to come alive.
Ladies and gentlemen,
welcome aboard. We're deboarding. It's fine. GPU is connected. Let's go external power on the AC, on the DC, and we can get rid of the APU. There. And as you can see, the GPU now took over. So, you've just made it. Here, I'll give you a sticker, I'll give you a pat on the back, I'll give you a hug, whatever you need, guys. Welcome to Athens. Hope you had a nice flight. Hope you didn't crash. Hope your landing gear is still alive as well. And, most importantly, hope you're not afraid of the Dash 8 anymore. Let's start to call it the Dash 8. Crash 8 is proper 2020 information. We don't need that anymore. If you fly the right way, it won't be a Crash 8. And now you can flex on any kind of friend, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever kind of friend that you know how to fly the Dash 8. Guys, welcome to Athens. If you want more tutorials, just let me know. I can make more stuff. And then we'll get something sorted. Just make sure to check me out on Twitch. I stream, well, a lot of people would say way too much. You'll probably see me there a lot. I'll include the link, of course, down into the description. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Reddit even, Instagram, everywhere, guys. I'll see you later, hopefully live soon. Enjoy the Dash 8, and see you live, you sexy people.